You would think that anti-Jewish organizations in Europe would not want to stop Jews from making Aliyah. You'd think that they want us to get the hell out of Europe. But it turns out that a lot of these anti-Jewish, anti-Israel organizations are actually against Aliyah. They really want it both ways. They want Jewish life to be impossible in places like Spain and the UK. And at the same time, they want to block us from leaving. It reminds me a little bit of like Pharaoh.
If you ask the European Jews, most of them say that it's finished. They don't see a long-term future in Europe.
And the land of Israel is calling the Jewish people back home. God is ingathering the exiles. It's happening in our time. You would think that anti-Jewish organizations in Europe would not want to stop Jews from making Aliyah. You'd think that they want us to get the hell out of Europe, from Belgium, from Holland, from France, from the UK. There's a lot of anti-Semitism, so get out. But it turns out that a lot of these anti-Jewish, anti-Israel organizations are actually against Aliyah and are trying to stymie Aliyah, trying to put spokes in the wheels of Aliyah, trying to slow it down, trying to make sure it doesn't happen. Why is that? Because of their occupation accusation. They believe that Jewish people don't have a right to the land of Israel. They don't want to see us stronger here, so now they want to keep Jews in Europe, at the same time attacking them with their anti-Semitism while there as well. You can't win. Shraga Evers is the CEO of Shivat Zion, an Aliyah organization, the Aliyah organization dedicated to helping European Aliyah and British Aliyah. And I'm here with Shraga today. Shraga, you've come under attack by a media company that seeks to attack anything Israeli or Jewish. Now they've found that Aliyah, immigration from Europe, is something that they want to stop. Why do they want to stop it?
That's a very good question. I think that if you listen to what is said in the streets in Europe, and the rest of the world, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. It's very clear they're not after Judah and Shimon, after Judea and Samaria. They're after Jews in any place in Israel. I think that's what bothers them so much.
The whole thing is the occupation, right? The occupation.
They call it occupation, but in fact they're against Jews in Israel.
Right. I mean, to say the whole Israel is occupation, and also what did I have a guy in the show yesterday, Gidon Levy. He says yesterday the Nakba is 1948. I mean, to say the whole enterprise of Israel is no good, right? Okay.
Exactly. So the interesting thing is that you see in Europe a lot of activism against anything connected to Israel that's Jewish, whether it's a cultural event. They try to disrupt by getting in, or on the political level, they tried the Minister for Culture in Belgium. There was a case in Germany also. People that are artists that are not per se right or left wing, they don't care. Anything related to Israel, they're against and trying to fight. The newest development is fighting Aliyah. Last November, we had Aliyah fair in London, where riots in front of the shul and the synagogue, St. John's Wood.
What's it called?
The St. John's Wood synagogue. It's in the area called St. John's Wood. There was a big Aliyah fair. There's a lot of interest in Aliyah, also, of course, because of their many attacks that Jews
right, because anti-Semitism causes Jews to think maybe we should leave. There's no place to stay here. It's not going to work out for us.
Right, exactly.
Right, but they want to, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's like they want it both ways, right?
They don't like Jews. And it's a funny thing because I remember when I was young, there was a Holocaust survivor. He was always saying, when I was young, they told us, get out of our country, go back to your land, go to Palestine. And then the Holocaust happened, and most of the Jews went to Palestine or to Israel, the modern Israel. And now they say, get out of Palestine. It's a funny thing. I think they just have an issue with Jews, not per se the land of Israel. They don't like to see Jews being successful and strong. And that's also one of the reasons why they're after Aliyah. So last Aliyah fair in London, the police put a huge cordon around the synagogue, but they allowed them to march to the gates of the shul, the synagogue, and it came actually to some physical violence as well.
And what were you offering at that synagogue in St. John's Wood?
Well, we offer support to anyone who wants to make Aliyah. We encourage Aliyah. We think Jews belong in the land. Having said that, it's everyone's own choice, of course. So We try to help people prepare in the best possible way so they have a soft landing. We try to get them to communities that of their choosing, that they're good for them and that fit them, and we make sure that they get everything that they need. That's what we do.
Okay, so now declassified. Who is declassified? What do they want from you? They just did a big scathing report on you, claiming that you are allowing Jews to move from Europe to the occupation, etc. Right? They're trying to make linkage between the West Bank issues, Judea and Samaria issues, and Aliyah issues. What's their claim? Who is declassified? What's their claim?
Right. So declassified is a British NGO that has an obsession with Israel, and
who funds them?
Donations.
You don't know if it comes from places like Qatar?
No idea. I don't have any view on that. So the thing is, because they're a British organization, actually not an activistic Muslim organization, but it could be that they're funded by specific foundations with these kind of agendas. However, because they are very British, they try to always find a hook in order to justify that they're attacking a certain organization or activity or person. Okay. They're after people also. They ambush people when they identify someone and they can find some kind of hook they'll go after. So what did they do with us is the following. They infiltrated the Aliyah fair, the same fair that there was a physical violence with so-called Jewish anti-Zionistic activists. And one of the people that infiltrated went with us through the whole process. So, like we always do, we're very kind to people, very excited about Aliyah. And we have a number of tools and we try to see what fits people. And she came up with the idea to move to Efrat. Happens that I myself live in Efrat. Great place, and she came up with that. We never suggest people where to live because it's just not right. People have to choose themselves. We can give information as per their request. Then they accused us that we are trying to push people to move to the illegal occupied territories, whatever they call it, and that it's illegal according to international law. According to British law, and any funding that we receive should be blocked, meaning people shouldn't be able to donate what they claimed it's taxpayers' money paying for the settlements. While we just help people, we don't care where they live. We care about them succeeding. And
but you have no problem with Jews living in Judea and Samaria.
No, I mean I always say I'm a Jew in Hebrew because you say Yehudi. I'm not going to apologize that I live in Judea, in Yehuda. Even in Hebrew, there's not a real difference between Yehudi and Yehuda. Yehuda is Judea and Yehudi is Jew. That's also probably the reason why they so obsessed with calling it West Bank, because the real name is actually the land of the Jews. Very good. So their hook was, okay, and they lied about it because it wasn't true. We didn't push people to move to Efrat. She asked us to move there. And we explained, like we do when someone moves to Tel Aviv or the Golan Heights. We're totally fine with that. We work according to Israeli law. And even according to international and British law, it's not illegal. I mean, you can help a Jew with social affairs issues, which new immigrants are, wherever he lives. That's not against any law. But they made him a huge balagan. I said that. It
was an expose.
Yeah, they made a big expose about it. It has 900,000 views in the meantime. Wow. We get harassed like crazy online.
Wow, 900,000 views about an organization trying to help Jews leave anti-Semitic UK to come and live in the land of Israel, which they're saying you're specifically pushing Judea and Samaria, so-called West Bank, although you're not against, right? I just want to make sure that that's clear as well.
Well, I live in Efrat myself. Okay. This is part of Judea. I mean, but I don't even go into that direction. But the tendency is just fighting everything that makes Israel better than it is, or that presents Israel in a positive way.
Yeah, definitely. So I want to get back to this point, which is they really want it both ways. They want Jewish life to be impossible in places like Spain, in the UK, Belgium, etc. And at the same time, they want to block us from leaving. Right? It reminds me a little bit of like Pharaoh. It's like, here you're going to be enslaved, and I surely don't want to see you go. And it's like, they want to crush us right now. And we've got this Jewish state that's welcoming people home. Let's just talk for a minute about Aliyah itself these days. How many people, where are you seeing the most action from? Which European countries? Are you like a lifeboat? Is the project, now you are the son of the former chief rabbi of Holland, am I right?
Right, yeah, he used to be the chief rabbi of the Dutch United Synagogue.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a pretty serious upbringing.
Yeah, he served also in Germany. So I served in Germany for the last 5 years of his career. So I've been a lot in the communities.
So you've been to you understand the UK, you understand Germany, you certainly understand Holland, right? These were beautiful countries in many ways.
Nothing as nice as the land of Israel, of course.
Certainly not. But I'm saying, is the project of European Jewry finished? Is that finished?
It depends who you ask. If you ask the European Jews, most of them say that it's finished. They don't see a long-term future in Europe. And the reason of it being that currently and in the last 20 years, I would say, Jews are being harassed. They call it anti-Zionism, but they always refrain from calling it anti-Jewish.
Right.
But
we're not gonna say you're disgusting. It's just your country is disgusting, right? It's such a funny such a funny trick. And then they're like, well, we're against the policies. That's totally legitimate. But really, you're anti-Jewish.
Right. They're anti-Jewish. You see it because their activism isn't equally spread over, other major issues in the world. It's always around the Jews. But you see, there's pressure in universities on campus. You see, there's pressure on the culture. A culture like even a performer, a Jewish performer they find some kind of hook and they just disturb, or even if they don't find something, you have legal and political pressure. More and more calls for boycott and active implementation of that. They try sometimes to hook it to Judah and Shomron, Judea and Samaria, but not always. They want boycott of the universities. They want Israeli corporations out, whether it's a weapon manufacturer or other things. They don't really care. Some people, because they are not as they're not Muslims themselves, for example, and anti-Israel, they will try to find a hook. So they'll focus more on like Israeli weapon companies. But in practice, they're just after everything that is Jewish or Israeli or.
What are the numbers? What are the numbers?
In what perspective?
Well, what are the numbers of people who are interested in making Aliyah? What is the potential for people making Aliyah? Again, is the returning to the land of Israel, immigration to the land of Israel.
Right.
What are we talking about here? What's as we Hebrew, Mahai Kif?
If we look at France, for example, we actually have the same absolute numbers like the United States, which is a community that's 11 times larger than France. You're talking about around 3,000 olim per year. Okay, so
you get that.
That's
so
huge.
So there's let's say 5-6 million Jews in America. What is it? 400,000 Jews in France.
About 600,000.
600,000. Okay. So you're saying, but in terms of Aliyah, there's about 3,000 a year that come from France. That's a similar amount that is coming from the United States,
more or less,
because France is no longer safe for Jews, no longer comfortable for Jews, so they're being pushed out.
Right, and halavai, we would prefer people coming out of ideological considerations only, and many Jews have. I mean, the land is pretty full. Some have fled, some came out of pure ideological considerations, but we do see a lot of people being added to the ones that are considering Aliyah. So France is always in professional terms. If you ask people at the ministry or the Jewish Agency or any other organization, they're always taken as the example. What's going to happen in the rest of Europe in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now?
Right.
And we saw it. Actually, it's actually true if you look back into numbers.
Now I had a guy, a friend of mine from Canada, on the show. He was telling me, listen, we're getting shootings at synagogues. We no longer feel safe. Right. Is that what they're feeling in Europe? That they're physically not safe? And what I have learned, what I've thought, what I've come to understand is that the real difference is when the country itself is no longer protecting you.
Right, exactly.
Like, that's the change.
That's the problem.
It's not even the amount of, jihadi immigrants or.
Right.
The question is the country with you or not so much?
Right, and that's exactly the difference. If people say, yeah, but Israel's not safe either, that's exactly the difference. The Jews in Europe feel threatened in the direct surrounding, and they know that they don't have the backing of the country. Now, we spoke a pretty long time ago, a year and a half ago, around the riots that happened in Amsterdam. And back then it was like a crazy thing. You even took time in your podcast to sit on it. And what's very important, what happened there, like nowadays it's normal. Like back then was special, now it's normal. What happened there is that that Jews realized that the police was either not willing or not able to cope with something like that. Right. Like with in this case, mostly Muslim immigrants taking control of the streets for only one night.
And also another event that happened between the time that I've spoken to you last is what happened in Australia.
Right.
The Sydney shootings, the Bondi Beach shootings. And now there's more and more. Even
every day. This week there were 3 or 4 terror attacks in the UK against Jewish objects to synagogues and the Israeli embassy. You of course had attack on Yom Kippur in Manchester last year. It's actually there isn't a day that's passing by without reports on attacks. Even in the UK, about 40 to 50% of all the religion-oriented attacks against, like racism in general, are against Jews.
Wow.
And they're just a very small part of the 69 million residents in the UK.
So anti-Semitism is rising. Jews are not feeling safe. They feel like the states, if it's Belgium, if it's France, if it's Holland, if it's the UK, and I don't know what's going on in Spain exactly. I don't know how many. I don't hear enough about that. What's going on in Spain, but I know this Spain is anti-Israel. That's for sure. So people are not feeling safe. So they're turning to you now. Is anti-Semitism, and I'm going to say this tongue-in-cheek, is anti-Semitism good for business? Is it bringing people home? Because that is also a way that Jewish people have come home. Anti-Semitism is also God's way of saying, okay, it's hard for you to leave this place, and I'm going to help you by making it less attractive, less sticky.
It's for sure less attractive because people that are leaving, they're coming to Israel out of negative motivations. They will have a harder time adjusting here. So that's for sure a hard thing. We do see it. We see.
I'm not sure that's true. Is that really necessarily true?
Yes, because when you go away from somewhere that's in a negative way, you're trying to get to a better place, right? So you're focused on the negative things, maybe also the positive things that the
Russian Aliyah worked out very well here in Israel.
It worked out, but I'm not sure how their experience was, and they didn't have an option to go back. Europe isn't currently in a state that people have to flee. It's getting increasingly unpleasant. Now you see those in the groups that we're serving. First of all, you have the people that always thought about Aliyah and they got a little extra push, which is totally fine. But there's a part of social exclusion. It's funny, people being Jews that are part of society, they're not religious. They have a Jewish identity. They're clearly Jewish for themselves. For their close surrounding knows. Not everyone knows. And they get disinvited from parties. People attack them personally. And they are maybe not pro-Netanyahu or they're right-wing, but they are not pro-Hamas. That's a bit too much. So we see a lot of people like them that are on their way to assimilate into the larger society that suddenly wake up and they feel excluded, and that's happening to Jews in general. They're more and more excluded because everything is attacked.
Jews are excluded in Europe. What a shame! What an absolutely shameful behavior that Europe is putting on its Jews. It's amazing that less than 100 years after the Holocaust, we're back to square one here with anti-Semitism, with Jewish hate, with Israel hate. And yet it seems to be something that they don't have the merit to have their Jews amongst them any longer. And the Evers is the CEO of Shivat Zion, which means the return to Zion. This is the term used in the early Second Temple period by Ezra and Nehemiah and Nehemiah. And that's what's happening today. Today we call it Zionism. Back then it was called Shivat Zion. And that is the term of art back then. Today is called Zionism. It's called Aliyah, the ingathering of the Jewish people to the land of Israel. Shraga, how do people find out more? And how do European Jews or friends of Jews in Europe, how do they reach out to you and your organization to help people get back home? Shraga, you're going to be going on a road trip through Europe, right, on like the Aliyah bus. I want you to know that years ago when I was working on Aliyah in the United States, that was one of our ideas to have like an Aliyah caravan, Aliyah bus. You know, Mark did the Aliyah road trip going throughout the United States, but you're doing that, and you're doing that through Europe. Tell me a little bit about that. Obviously, you know, in America when I was talking about Aliyah, it was going to be fun. It was going to be like a fun bus, but here there's also a certain amount of danger. So tell me a little bit about your plan.
Right, so our plan is to go to Europe early June. The issue is that we saw a problem, and the problem is that Jews heavily rely on Israel. They see it as their insurance policy, even if they don't want to go right now. But in smaller communities, no one is reaching out. So you have Aliyah fairs in London, like we have in 2 weeks from now. We organize something in Amsterdam, which is like a medium-sized community. But in anything beyond that, like there is no outreach for Aliyah. And we feel that the Jews feel left alone. And many of them don't even know how to make Aliyah. And of course, they can reach out and get on a Zoom call and everything like that. But there's nothing like, face-to-face. So our plan is to go early June on a road trip and cross all the cities in Germany, Swiss.
Wow.
Of course, the Jewish communities.
You're going to be like Hannibal? You're going to go over the Alps?
We'll just drive. But
okay.
We have a bus with an office in it, and we go city, and people can register. Of course, we have to be careful nowadays. It's not so much fun as you say. It has some risks with it, but we're bringing Aliyah to the people. Not convincing them, because we don't think we can convince anyone, but people that are interested, encourage them to show how to do it.
Right. Once something shows up and the paperwork's right before you, it makes it easier. So the Aliyah road trip through Europe, that's really awesome. And I really do hope that a lot of people do it and sign up. Shraga, sometimes I hear that the community, the organized Jewish community, is actually not so much for Aliyah. That they're somehow not encouraging it, even though they're the ones that see clearly what is happening, and that the administration, the governments are no longer really defending the Jews, and that things are bad, but still sometimes the organized Jewish community or the rabbis are not actually promoting Aliyah and not talking about it, and they're kind of, subduing that issue. Why? Why would that be?
Well, it's a bit of a delicate subject. I think it's mainly in Germany. You see this happening, also in other smaller communities. It's a paradox, because I was meeting yesterday with a Jewish family that made Aliyah from Hamburg, and after them, a number of other families also made Aliyah and took their example. And they're the stronger families. They're the ones that make Aliyah first. So the rabbi sees, and the board sees, strong people going away, people that are active in the Jewish community. And especially in Germany, there's another subject, that anything supporting Aliyah, meaning saying de facto that there is no future for Jews in Germany, is interpreted by the central government as telling there's no future, so might endanger their funding. So that's why in especially Germany, we see resistance against hosting anything related to Aliyah, which made our road trip so important, because there's no Aliyah services being offered proactively to the Jewish people there.
And the state of Israel, is it strong on this issue? Is it doing its job, or is it weak?
In Germany, there isn't much activity.
And how many Jews are we talking about in Germany?
According to research, is 120,000 core Jewish population.
All right, so there's 120,000 Jews in Germany, and they're not hearing the news. And what about, let's say, Chabad? Chabad does a great job of teaching Judaism, but they oftentimes are also on the side of staying strong and keeping a community strong and rebuilding the community or building the community, and therefore that might also stymie. Or is that incorrect? What I just said?
I'm afraid it's correct.
Right. So they're not always, even let's say in places like Ukraine, where the situation was bad. there were rabbis that called to stay in Ukraine.
Right.
And that is a mistake. That is a mistake.
It's a huge mistake, I think. We don't deal with Eastern Europe, but any community that is focused, that their revenue model, let's say, is the local community, will fight or not cooperate or fight against Aliyah.
Shraga, European Jews have an opportunity right now. There's a window, okay?
Right.
There's anti-Semitism pushing, and the land of Israel is calling.
Right, and actually this year and next year, the Ministry of Aliyah and Klita, they have enlarged their support package tremendously.
Wow. So the state of Israel is...
Yeah, in the recent years, they're extremely proactive by taking away barriers and providing more incentives to make Aliyah. I am afraid with the war and the cuts in the budget cuts and everything that this is like it's a window of opportunity that's not going to be the same in a couple of years from now. So, like you said, it's a time to come. You can still come in a relaxed way, move your possessions. That's going to be harder and harder. Europe is giving a harder time to do that. And make the choice now.
Make the choice now. Hashem is calling. The land of Israel is calling. Anti-Semitism is pushing. And so I really want to urge people to check out Shivat, SHIVAT dash Zion, ZION, .com, which is what? That's the original name of Zionism 2,000 years ago in the time of Ezra and Nehemiah, right? In the time of the rebuilding of the Second Temple. It was called Shivat Zion. Today we call it Zionism, but it's the same. It's the same. It's the same motion, and I guess that's why you call it. I, by the way, live on Shivat Zion Street, okay? So that's pretty cool. So I want to say that it's definitely, there's a maximum invitation, and I wouldn't say zero pressure because there is pressure from anti-Semitism, but that's really an opportunity to come home to the homeland. We're rebuilding the homeland. You could be part of that through buildisrael.com. We are restoring the land of Israel, restoring biblical sites, teaching Torah and the Bible throughout the world, and getting people to understand, believe, and be part of a strong Israel, which is a light to this region, a light to this world, and the spiritual capital of the world. Jerusalem is being built. It's a blessing in our time. So I'm sending you blessings from the land of blessings and heart from the heartland of Israel. Shraga, thanks so much for bringing the Jewish people home from Europe. God bless you.